Welcome to Vancouver Business Network, where entrepreneurs learn, network, and grow. I'm Roger Killen, the organizer. Our weekly workshop for entrepreneurs is brought to us by TELUS Business, the fastest and most reliable pure fiber broadband network in Metro Vancouver. Our speaker is Patrick von Pander. Patrick is a master certified business coach who has coached over 900 individuals and over 60 sales and leadership teams to be the best they can be. Patrick is a fitness nut, he's a foodie, he's a sports enthusiast, he's a movie lover, and he's a music fan. Vancouver Business Network members and most welcome guests, it's time for you to put your hands together and give Patrick von Pander a warm VBN welcome!
Thank you, Roger. So there are two types of business owners in the world. There's those who are self-employed, and there's those who actually have built a company. And let's talk about the distinctions between those two. Essentially, those that are self-employed have bought themselves, for the most part, a job. They're their own boss. And then there's those who actually build a company. So let's talk a little bit about the 8 distinctions that we can make between those two. First of all, there's an old saying that 50% of success is just showing up. Well, that may be true with self-employment or if you're in a job. But when you have a company, the degree to which you're able to be away from the company and not have a negative impact on the company's performance is an indicator of the value of that company. Number 2, those that depend on one major or just a few major customers for their revenues are at risk for being controlled by those customers, that they have to adapt their business to satisfy those customers. Whereas a business doesn't rely on one or a few number of customers, they rely rather on the systems and processes that the business relies on to manage and scale. A lot of self-employed people or people with jobs, they rely on their personal experience to be able to add value to the people that are their clients. Whereas a company, their brand is more important, what they build up as a brand. So the business is not so reliant on the reputation of the person or individual, but rather on the brand that the company has built to provide that reliability. Number 4 is that in a job or business self-employment situation, you rely on your experience to be able to deliver the results, the outcomes, the product or the service. Whereas in a business, it's those systems and processes, not the person, that delivers the value. 5, when you're self-employed or you're in a job, when you take too much vacation, you get fired, either by your boss or by your customers. Whereas in a company, the more vacation you can take without impacting your company, the more valuable your company actually will be. Number 6, when you're self-employed or in a job, the harder you work, the more you earn. Whereas in a company, the smarter you work, the more you earn. Number 7, when you're self-employed or in a job, you're the one that's solving the problems. When you have a company, it is your employees that are solving those problems. And number 8, if you run a business where all or most of your customers know your personal cell phone number, chances are very likely that you are self-employed or in a job, not a company. My name is Patrick von Pander. As Roger mentioned, for the last 16 years, I've gotten to work with a lot of business people I would say it breaks down to 3 different categories of business people, and that is solo professionals and professional services firms, helping them to fill their business with profitable clients. Second area is small businesses, product-oriented oftentimes, helping them have their best year ever, and working with corporations and especially with teams, helping them build their immunity to people problems. And as most of us know, the bigger the team, the more complexity there is with the interrelationships everyone has within and across the team. And so the more likelihood there is of friction and tension and conflict. So I help them build the immunity to that. Before that, I spent 18 years in the corporate world. 14 of those years were in the telecommunications, the newly deregulating telecom industry that was big in that era. And before that, in the consumer packaged goods industry, where I really learned deeply what it was to be able to bring a product to market and the whole the distribution chain leading up to retail and merchandising. Before that, university educated, where I got my degree in business administration, majored in marketing, minored in accounting. And before that, was part of the family business from age 6, where I learned a lot of small business lessons from an early age. I was in a family where both of my parents were Eastern European immigrants, and in a family business with Eastern immigrant parents at that time, if you were old enough and strong enough to be able to help, you were out there helping the family. And so you couldn't help but learn some lessons in that environment. So I got to work through that to bring me to the point where I am. I'm now very passionate about focusing on the topic that I'm going to share with you tonight, and that is to be able to really work with, ideally, business owners who have companies largely in revenue ranges between $500,000 and $5 million in annualized revenues. And the 2 things that I help those business owners with most is, number 1, helping them raise the value of their business. And number 2 is help them become more free and independent of their business, where it doesn't matter whether or not they actually are showing up on any given day, any given week. I want to share some of the 5 factors, the 5 ways to be able to increase that business's value and that business freedom and independence. Would it be okay if I started off this by sharing a little bit of a story? Would that be okay? Yeah. Terrific. Thank you. Appreciate it. So I want to introduce you to someone. This is Stephanie. Stephanie sold her $9 million company for $54 million. I just want you to think about that for a moment and think about, what if you were Stephanie? What would you do with $54 million? Those of you that are in YouTube land or watching this online, maybe throw your thoughts and comments into the comments section. Let us know. The thing that I hear a lot of, travel. A lot of people, if money were no object, they travel more, have more life experiences. They'd maybe want to invest in something that means something for themselves, maybe their own business, maybe real estate, maybe a philanthropic cause that means something for them. I'm sure all of you in the room right now are thinking about things that you would love to do if you had that $54 million. And you out there watching this from your computer are thinking about this as well. What would you do if you were Stephanie with that $54 million? Let's talk about the math that goes along with this. When it comes to valuation, there's some very well known metrics that go with valuing a company. When the marketplace is looking to invest and buy into a company, there are some formulas that they tend to work with overwhelmingly. And generally speaking, what they look at is they look at a multiple of what the annual earnings of that company is. Of course, there's going to be variations based on a number of factors. We're going to go into some of those factors here today. Statistically and mathematically, historically here in the North American marketplace, and pretty well received in international areas as well, generally speaking, across quite a spectrum of businesses, the factor is about 3.76. Now, when it comes to valuing the business, there's a tool that I was made aware of last year that is a unique proprietary tool that allows business owners to be able to measure on a scale of 1 to 100 those factors that impact where they are in that spectrum of value. And based on that spectrum of 1 to 100, where they sit right now, regardless of their industry or profession, in terms of their potential valuation. And so we're going to go into this in the next few minutes, and I'm going to share some insights with you that I think you'll find really, really enlightening. And there's math that goes with this. And so one of the things that we look at is size does matter. Generally speaking, when your company has larger revenues, you're worth more. When you have a company that has earnings that are under $1 million, you're going to be worth a lot less. When we took the measurement using this proprietary tool, we found that companies that were scoring 50 or below were really underperforming in terms of the multiple that you could command. When you have larger scores, the larger your score, the better the better multiple and price you could command. And so this gives you a sense of that. And what we found is that compared to the average of 3.76, when you scored 80 or above, you generally speaking were valued at 71% higher than the average. And so that's why today's topic was how to be able to, like 5 ways for you to be able to increase the valuation of your firm and become more independent from your business by 71%. And that's why it was so specific, is because we applied real science to this. So multiple and the math goes in lockstep with size. Size does matter when it comes to business valuation. So if we look at the benchmark, 3.76 is math. When you have a company that's under $1 million in annualized revenue, you actually have a smaller multiple that you can command. But the degree to which you actually build the size of your company is the degree to which your company becomes increasingly more attractive and valuable in your company. And so this is why there's an underlying race to the top to become large in terms of market share. So keep that in mind. Size does matter when it comes to making your company more and more valuable. Another factor that really impacts the valuation of your company is monopoly. How much do you dominate in your marketplace? So when you compete with others in the marketplace, how dominant are you in the space that you serve? Are you in a highly competitive field or marketplace, or are you something that is unique? The degree to which you're unique and you dominate that marketplace has a substantial and significant, meaningful impact on the valuation of your company. So let's go back to Stephanie. Stephanie has a payroll services company, but a very unique form of payroll services company. Her marketplace consists of parents. Now, how is it, you might ask, can you offer payroll services to parents? Well, it happens to be that it's parents who employ a nanny, a full-time nanny. And what Stephanie and her company does and did was to develop a specific service for that particular target market niche. And so when it came to growing Stephanie's company, she had a choice. She was building it up, and she had a certain client base that she was working with, parents. The question was, Do you sell more stuff to those existing parents, or do you simply find more parents with a nanny? Now, some of us might think, well, you know what? You've got the relationships already. Intuitively, you've got the relationships already with the parents. Why don't you just sell more things to parents? This is where Stephanie took a right turn the correct way. She turned right, and she learned lesson number 1. Sell fewer things to more people, to more customers. She took the right turn and went to find more parents with a nanny. That's lesson number 1. Now, another aspect is how likely are your customers to actually recommend you? I think most of us could probably agree that it's important to have raving fans. Is that fair to say? The degree to which you have raving fans has a disproportionate effect in the marketplace to help drive value and build your customer base. When you have great customer fans, like raving customer fans, then it'll drive your marketing for you, and it becomes exponential. All of us are here networking. We're out there building relationships, and most of us realize that word of mouth is probably the strongest. Those of you that are marketers out there, you know it's the strongest form of marketing. And so when you think of certain brands that are really well known, maybe I can ask you for some input. What are some brands out there in YouTube land or here in the room? What sort of brands really stand out for you that people are super passionate about? Apple.
Lululemon.
Lululemon. Terrific. Others? Microsoft. Nike. Porsche. Terrific brands, right? People who are very passionate. And so when you look at some of the brands that really own their niche, like Harley Davidson, like Eventbrite in its space, like Apple, like Google, they have passionate fans. And so there is actually an objective way to measure how rabid your fans are, how vibrant your fans are. And it's something called the Net Promoter Score. Now, this is a system and process that was developed a number of years ago that allows you to measure how enthusiastic your fans are about spreading your word, about being able to put your name out there. And there's a particular way that they use to calculate the math for Net Promoter Score. And you can go into a number of aspects of how deep, how simple, or how complex you want to get into this. But I'm going to take you through the high points. So first of all, you've got a category that are your promoters. In Net Promoter Score, your promoters are those people who are absolutely raving fans for you. So let's say, for argument's sake, that your Net Promoter Score, a number of your customers or clients that are raving fans are 25% of those. Then the next category are those that are the passives. They're the ones that might describe your business not in raving terms, but rather, you know what? They're good. They're okay. Yeah, they're solid. Those would be considered passive promoters. And then there's those people, let's say that accounts for, say, 75% for the purposes of this example. The others would be called the detractors. These are the people that are kind of like, meh, about the brand or about the company or the product or the service, or maybe they're even negative. They would be lumped into the detractors. So the way we do the math, if they accounted for 5% of your client base, the way we do the math is actually strike through and get rid of the passives, and what you'd end up with is a Net Promoter Score of 20%. Let's go back to Stephanie. What Stephanie did was she produced an onboarding team that made sure that the parents that were her company's customers, that they were brought on board and they were absolutely raving about the service right out of the gates. And that onboarding team led to her having a Net Promoter Score of 78%. I think we can all agree that's super high. So lesson number 2, strive for a Net Promoter Score of 50% or greater. Let's talk about recurring revenues. It certainly has been a theme out there in the marketplace, and it seems to be growing. But here's where you want to apply the math to this part of the equation. So we look at the aspect of the average company, the impact that having a disproportionately high, the majority of your revenues coming from recurring revenue sources, has a very profound and meaningful effect on the valuation of your company. And so when we look at Stephanie's example, $9 million worth of revenues, 100% of her business came from recurring revenues, 100%. So lesson number 3, create recurring revenue income streams for yourself. How to be able to shift that. Still a work in progress for me. I started making the shift last year. It's already having an impact. For me, I've kind of witnessed it in a hockey stick kind of manner, where people find it more palatable to look at it from a monthly perspective. Look at the way companies out there, major companies, are looking to steer their customer bases into long-term contracts. Look at the cellular providers out there. They have a vested interest to be able to lock you into 1 year, 2 year, 3 year contracts. The longer the service agreement, the higher their share value, because the greater the value of their company. The more, from the financial perspective, that the investors can rely on that reliable stream of income. Hugely impactful. So how can you incorporate revenue streams into the way that you build your business? Ownership of the customer relationship. So how involved are you with the customers? So when we look at this, we look at the baseline, of 3.76 as the average. When we measured businesses where the owner knew all of their customers and the customers, all of them knew the owner, it actually was to the detriment of the valuation and the independence of the business owner. If you think about it, kind of makes some sense, doesn't it? Because if the owner leaves or sells their business or moves on to do some sort of other project, the buyer of that business has to factor in a discount factor to make up for the relationships that they have yet to build. Makes sense, right? So the degree to which there's less and less contact by the business owner with the direct relationships with the customers is the degree to which you actually make your company more valuable. And that's a tough message to hear for a lot of solo professionals or small business owners, where a lot of the mantra is around really having great relationships. And I'm not saying don't have great relationships with your customers. Yes, but it's a matter of who owns those relationships, who is taking care of those relationships. And so the degree of independence that you have from the customer relationship is the degree to which your company becomes more valuable. And generally speaking, scalable too. And so for Stephanie, in her situation, her largest customer, her single largest customer, accounted for less than 1% of her overall revenues. So lesson 4 is reduce your reliance on a single customer or having direct ownerships as a business owner, having direct relationships with the majority or maybe all of your customers. And by the way, those are all external factors, but also those can be translated, this philosophy can be translated into the internal as well. So the more dependent you as a business owner or anyone as a business owner is on one or a key number of employees is the degree to which you open yourself up to risk within the company as well. And so the more you can spread that risk across your employees, your team, but also your suppliers, You know, I'm very well connected to a Jedi of a supply chain consultant that's in the room today. And one thing she does professionally is make sure that, yes, supplier agreements are aggressively negotiated, but there's also great value in terms of spreading that love across a number of suppliers, so no one supplier can ever be in a position to hold you hostage. So don't allow yourself to have any one customer, one supplier, one key employee hold your company's value and potential hostage. Now, growth potential. Let's talk about growth potential. How scalable can your business be? How easy or hard would it be for you to be able to grow your company by a factor of 5 times? From a mathematical perspective, if we look at the baseline again of 3.76 as a multiple of earnings, when it is near to impossible to accommodate that kind of growth, your company becomes that much less valuable. And the more you can apply additional resources to allow that scaling, to allow that 5 times, and I've heard a lot in the marketplace that 10x your company. When you can allow that capacity to be increased by an exponential factor, that really allows you to scale your business. And so looking at Stephanie's situation, Stephanie, she had a very solid situation where she was growing her company at the rate of 17% a year. Solid, right? But a far cry from 5 times what her company was doing in any given year. So for her, what was very valuable is to be able to align yourself, and this is lesson number 5, align yourself with an acquirer that can allow you to scale and grow. How can you position yourself to scale and grow? We can think of some. I can certainly think of a few examples out there that have been in the news at a very highly visible format. YouTube, the format we're on, they did find Google, didn't they? Google allowed them to scale up in a way that YouTube never could have on their own. Instagram, they found Facebook. Instagram added value to Facebook, and the integration between those two allowed for a scalability that allowed you to grow at an exponential basis. LinkedIn, they found Microsoft, didn't they? To allow them to scale up. When you can find an acquirer that you can add value to and scale on an exponential basis, that's perfect positioning. And so what Stephanie found was a company in care.com that looked at what Stephanie was doing, and the customer base and the systems and processes and the people and culture that she had put together and integrated very well, and saw an opportunity to leverage that for exponential growth. And this is part of the reason why she was able to take not only a great multiple of earnings, but a great multiple of revenues, which is super rare. That's a very different metric when you're talking to financial people, accountants, financial advisors, and bankers. I did a presentation to a group of RBC bankers just a couple of weeks ago, and they were like, wait a minute, she sold it for a multiple of revenue? Yes, because the customer base, care.com, saw that as a massive potential and supremely loyal customer base to be able to leverage and then apply the scalability aspect to it. So just to recap, the 5 keys that we want to follow here is being able to sell fewer things to more customers, to more people, to be able to strive for a 50+ net promoter score, to be able to operate or create recurring revenue streams, to be able to reduce reliance on any one customer, key employee, or supplier, and to be able to find an acquirer that allows you to scale in a massive way. And when you can do that, when you can get all 5 of those, you can start to be able to really command a great exit. So I mentioned a little earlier that I started working with this proprietary tool. When I was shown this last year, it blew me away, because certainly working as a coach, I work with the people aspect of it, but I also know that it's not just the people that you need to be able to grow a great company. You also want to make sure that you have the math taken care of. And so I call it the hearts and minds approach. You want to be able to have the people-centered, heart-centered, purpose-driven approach taken care of, but it needs to make mathematical sense as well. What I love about this is it applies math and metrics and objectivity to something that was, for a lot of people, especially in the small business sector, I mean, the big businesses, the ones that are generating $20 and $50 million and $100 million and up, they've got specialty consultants that just work on mergers and acquisitions to help guide those owners. But this sector is largely unserved or vastly underserved. And that's why I wanted to be able to go here and apply this tremendous tool. A couple of interesting things that I learned in the process is that when surveyed, and over 40,000 businesses have come through the Value Builder questionnaire, they shared that their plan is to exit their business within 10 years. Now, that could be for a variety of reasons. It could be for retirement. Maybe it's a partial exit where they want to sell a part of their company to a partner or to a management team that can do more of the heavy lifting. Maybe they're done with putting in 50, 60, 70, 80-hour weeks. They want to have a little more life balance. Maybe they're very entrepreneurial. Maybe they want to go on to their next gig. Maybe they've got a new business model, a new initiative that they want to pursue because they've been there and done that, and they want to work on their new project. Maybe they want to become more philanthropic and do something with the proceeds of the sale of their company that means something for them. But fully three quarters of business owners are planning to exit in the next 10 years. So I introduced the Value Builder system to them, and a couple of other statistics that you might find really interesting is that when it comes to high net worth individuals, so business owners are overrepresented in the high net worth segment as measured by investable assets. So those of you that are finance people or financial advisors or accountants in the room, you understand what this means. The larger the amount of investable assets you actually have available to you, the more likely it is that you garnered those investable assets as a byproduct of owning a business as opposed to inheritance or being a beneficiary from a foundation of some kind. And when it comes to the ultra high net worth segment, business owners virtually dominate those categories. So if your goal as a business owner is to be in that ultra high net worth arena, building a business is a great, great approach. The thing is, though, a lot of professionals, a lot of financial advisors and bankers and accountants and lawyers and business brokers, they focus on the investable assets portion of the pie, which statistically is only about 15% of that business owner's net worth. The majority of the net worth is actually sitting in their company. And so instead of looking just at the short-term available proceeds of the investable assets, the greater approach is to take the long view, the long approach, and focus on the 85%. And so how do I start the conversation with business owners? Well, I introduced the Value Builder system, and there's a simple 3-step approach that I work with them on to introduce them to this. First of all, it's just to be able to measure, to be able to let them know through a process where they stand on that scale of 1 to 100. Let's get a benchmark point sitting where they are. Then to be able to understand what that position is about and assess that, not only from an overall score perspective, but as it relates to the 8 factors that have the disproportionately higher impact on the valuation of the firm and the amount of independence that the business owner has from that business. And then to be able to, if they have any goals, to be able to, and want guidance, to be able to grow and build their company and maximize that valuation, maximize that freedom and independence that most of them now want, is to be able to coach them to do the right things the right way on the path to that. So breaking down every one of those steps, the first step is to measure. And what I do with business owners is I take them through a questionnaire, a 13 to 15 minute questionnaire that can be done over a Zoom online call or over a coffee table in person with them. Step number 2 is to be able to sit down with them, and there are 2 levels of assessment that I offer them. One is a dashboard assessment, which is a 1-pager and a 30-minute debrief of what that means in terms of their overall score, and then what they scored in every one of those 8 dimensions, those 8 factors. There's a second level of detail, and that is a very detailed report that's generated. And if they choose to, they can hire me to be able to share that report, which goes into much greater detail of what they scored in each dimension and strategies and recommendations to maximize their path to increasing their scores in every one of those factors, and thereby raising and maximizing their overall score. There's an investment involved with this, and it's a 2-hour one-on-one with me, either over Zoom or across the table. And for those that want to take it a step further and work to develop the valuation and maybe raise their score from what it might be, maybe it's 56 if they're an average firm, they're below or above that, to move it up to 80 or above as a score, well, there's an option to be able to be coached in that process. And I use a very comprehensive framework and a process over a 12-month period where I work one-on-one with the business owners through the 12 different aspects that maximize those 8 factors. So they have an opportunity to be coached one-on-one with me, get that guidance, get that support to be able to maximize their score that allows them to do more of what they want, whether that's to sell, move on, or just be more free and independent from their business. So I have a game plan coming into this year, and so what I'm doing, I'm offering workshops, something called a Business Freedom Workshop. This is a half-day workshop where I offer it to small groups of business owners, ideally 10 to 20 at a time, because those are nice intimate groups where we can get into some situational specifics, and I take them through a process. And at the end of that half-day workshop, and that workshop is very inexpensively priced, and either we can charge, and I'm putting this out there to my network, and most of you in a room know that I'm really well networked in the Lower Mainland, so I'm putting it out there to my network to have business owners attend on their own if they wish, but it's also being offered to accounting firms, law firms, business brokerage firms, banks, and accounting and financial advisory firms, for them to offer it to their business owner clients at a chargeable rate of $197 or at a sponsored rate of $197, where they offer it as a value added for their clients to build and strengthen and deepen those working relationships with them, and of course increase the value of their clients' businesses and the proceeds that can come from working with those other professionals. To be able to deliver that workshop and then follow up at the end of the workshop, be able to offer them for free the questionnaire that they hand in before they leave the room. And then I set up, usually a few days later, or maybe a week or 2 later, a one-on-one debrief with the dashboard report, giving them the results of their questionnaire and some interpretations that way for those that want to take advantage of a further in-depth detailed report and a 2-hour sit down with me online or in person. I do that and provide them with a very detailed, comprehensive report, which, if they wish to just take forward on their own on a do-it-yourself basis, they're welcome to do that. If they want to take it a step further and have some guidance and support, I offer that in a variety of different options. I've got a 1 hour a month, 4 hour a month, and a 8 hour a month offering that I work with them on to maximize that. So for those of you online, this is the offer. Please visit bigpicturecoach.com/free session. And what you'll find there is an online survey that allows me to be able to understand what are the priorities for you in your business situation, where you are in your business and what you want to work on most. And then we can set up, there's an opportunity to be able to choose your first 3 preferred choice of dates and times for us to be able to connect one-on-one for a 30-minute Zoom call for us to talk about where you want to take your business. Those of you out there that are not in the situation of being a business owner, by the way, if you are a business owner that's between $500,000 and $5 million in annualized revenues and you just simply want the Value Builder score, just simply email me at the address you see on the screen, and you will and just ask for the Value Builder score, and I'll be in touch with you. For those of you that are solo professionals or professional services firms that don't fall into the category of having an interest in the Value Builder score process, or you're a small business or a corporate team, go to bigpicturecoach.com/free session and share with me what you want to work on in your business. Chances are very likely that I've worked in your business or in your professional field, and we'll be able to have a discussion around how you can either fill your professional service business with profitable clients, have your best year ever, or help your team really work at its best, personally and professionally. My name is Patrick Von Pander. I am the Big Picture Coach, and I love helping business people have their best year ever through game plans for business and game plans for life. Thank you, Roger. We have a few minutes for questions. We're ahead of time and ahead of schedule, so if we have a few questions from the live audience here, wish to forward those my way, and I'd be happy to help in the way that I can. We have one in the back, yes.
How do you evaluate like a company that has a lot of assets, but they hasn't done much revenue, but maybe has a history, but due to whatever reason, the owner was a one-man operation and sort of maybe wasn't able to continue going on, still has those assets, but hasn't had the revenue.
So the question is, just to repeat it for the online audience, is for those single owner operators that have a disproportionately high amount of physical product in inventory, how are they valued?
Yes.
Is that your question?
It may not be physical, it could be digital products, but they have a solid asset inventory. They just haven't been able to commit to either marketing it or selling it, to getting to their customers.
So they have basically an inventory or maybe an unserviced or unused capacity that is being underutilized, right? There's potential for further growth, either, right, so you can deliver more product, or if you've got a digital project, you've got you've got great scalable capacity to be able to deliver it all day, all night, all week long kind of thing. Is that your question? So the interesting part about the Value Builder process is it factors in, based on your industry and profession, those factors, and it incorporates the valuation part of it. And so through the question process, those items will get flushed out. And what I love about this that makes it so universal and exciting for me as a business coach is that it factors in what industry and profession you're in, and it benchmarks your potential based on the known quantities and the known industry statistics that are based in that industry or that profession. So it's beautiful that way. I found it really, when I was doing my due diligence, those are some of the tough questions I was asking, like, okay, how can you be so relevant in all these different situations. And the deeper I dug, the better it looked. So there were factors. And certainly there's going to be situational factors that have a role to play in it. But I found it to be very universal and applicable and relevant for quite a wide variety of industries and professions, which makes it super exciting. It benchmarks you versus who else is in your field.
Right.
Yes.
Out of the key comments that you brought forward, what would you say is the most impactful single change if you had to focus on one of the key points for growth?
The one that you're scoring the lowest on by comparison. Generally speaking, you know, and people have heard me talk about this, it's kind of like the chair with four legs. You know, I've talked about the chair with four legs. Generally speaking, there's four aspects of virtually any business that you want to have strongly in place. You want to have strong sales. You want to have strong productivity and efficiency. You want to have strong client satisfaction levels. And you want to have strong profitability, often delivered in the form of very robust cost control measures, systems, and processes. And just like a chair with four legs, well, how solid and stable is that chair if one leg is missing or weak? It starts to get tippy, right? And so you don't feel as comfortable sitting on it. Or how about standing on it, right? You have to compensate a lot. And there's only a certain amount of time you can actually compensate for that lack of strength, that balanced business strength, until you wear out. Now, what happens if two legs are missing or weak? Well, it gets very tippy and very difficult to balance. And so it's not as intuitive, it's situationally specific, but I would say it's usually the leg or the area that you're performing least on that's probably holding you back the most. It's that leg that you need to strengthen up to shore up the other, because they're all interdependent, right? If in that four-leg scenario, if your sales are super strong, guess what? Really strong sales makes up a lot for lack of profitability or lack of client satisfaction levels, lack of productivity and efficiency, because your sales can make up for that. But if it's weak, it can detract from all of those areas. So it becomes a suck from those other areas. And so that would be my answer, is taking a very holistic view of this and make sure that you've got as many of these factors taken care of. I'm a huge believer in balanced business strength. Thank you for the question, appreciate it. Other questions, or how are we for time? Yes.
Now, there's a lot of business owners, especially ones who are just starting out on their first business, who don't have the resources to, of course, start out as a company immediately. So we'll have to, I'm sure many of the people in this room are in this boat, is they'll have to transition through being self-employed. So if there's one tip you could give for a person to help smooth over that transition from self-employed to into progressing into a company, what would that be?
I would say I would add two things. So that, just to repeat the question, is for somebody starting out, somebody just starting out, maybe they're self-employed and they don't have the scalable resources to be able to build up to that point. I would say, and is that a valid characterization of the question?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I would say two things. First of all, too many of us as business people are impatient. We don't take the long view. In Stephanie's example, how long do you think it took her to build up her company to the point where she sold it for $54 million? Any guesses?
10 years.
10 years? 15, I heard? Closer. 20. 20 years. 20 years of 17% year-over-year growth. But guess what? 20 years, is that worth waiting for if the payout is $54 million? Yeah. If I was to ask her a show of hands, I think I'd see some ball sockets coming unglued. Patience is a big key. But here's the point to that. The other point to that, the flip side of that, is if you know from the outset what you need to satisfy, the check marks that you want to build from a foundational basis from the start, then you know what more specifically and more clearly what to put your energy towards. It's lack of clarity and people getting in their own way. And you know, I hear this from my partners all the time, right? When they're dealing with business people who don't know what they don't know. And so awareness has a big role to play in this. So when you know what the check boxes are, when you know what those 4 legs are, you know these 5 factors that I just shared with you, or the 8 or the 5 ways to be able to increase your value, or the 8 factors that disproportionately impact your value and freedom from a business, then you know what to put your energy to, and you're less willing, because of that clarity, to be able to give time and energy and money and other resources to those things that fall outside of those things. Guess what? Life and business actually becomes easier because you have that clarity. Yes? Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yes?
20 years, overnight success, 20 years in the making.
Overnight success story, 20 years in the making, yes.
Did she enjoy the journey? Did she actually enjoy the business?
She loved, pardon me, repeat the question. The question was, did she enjoy her journey?
Yeah.
I didn't speak with her personally, but I read her notes from her journey. And let me answer your question with a question. Do you think if she hated what she was doing, she would have done it for 20 years?
No, that's why I asked the question.
Yes.
No, the answer to the question.
Thank you. Perfect. When you find something you really enjoy, and for me, when I'm working with my clients, it becomes a simple binary litmus test. When things you're doing, whether it's personally or professionally, give you energy, you know it's a right fit for you. Not anyone else, you. When it gives you energy, it's a right fit for you. If it drains you of energy, it's not a right fit. Find a way to ditch it or delegate it or let go of it in some way, shape, or form. It may be something that somebody else loves to do. Thank goodness we're not all the same personality style and we have different values. When you can find other people who complement what you do and surround yourself with that in ways that, you know, you can win together. I mean, I'm a big sports fan, and I see this with team sports all the time. When everybody plays their position, everybody wins or is more likely to win. Very few championships have been won by everybody playing the same position. Everybody gets to be complementary and synergistic. And so those are the things you want to be able to do. You want to find a business that allows you to be able to do this long term and play the long game. I love what I do. I know I want to do it for another 20 years. When you can find that thing, and the things like golfing and sailing are less attractive for you, then you know you're in a good place. Look at the actors and singers and business people that are in their 70s and 80s and don't even think about stopping. They've found it. I hope you find yours.
Patrick, thank you very
Roger.
much.
Appreciate it.
And TELUS Business, we thank you also for making this reproduction possible. Good night. Good night, and thank you once more, Patrick.
Thank you.